And Canada's energy sector is in the spotlight after Ottawa and Alberta reached a new pipeline agreement. To break down the economic implications of the deal, from job stability to government revenues and environmental concerns, I sat down with economist Dr. Moshe Lander. We discussed just how big of an impact this could have on the Canadian economy if a pipeline does proceed.
The biggest word there is if. I'm not entirely sure that we're actually going to see the results of this. And if we do, it's probably not for a decade. If it gets built, if it goes within the next decade, it does have the capacity to massively increase the ability for Canada to export oil to a market other than the US, which is, of course, what the whole point of the exercise is. But I think that part of the story that's getting glossed over is where exactly are we planning on selling this? If you're looking to export to Asia, which would seem the natural market if you're going to build a port to the North BC coast, Saudi Arabia is closer and their oil is easier to refine. Alberta oil is that thick, dense bitumen that needs to be upgraded before it can be put into a pipeline, and it needs a lot more refining, so it's a lot costlier, which means that in terms of what money Albertans receive, it's a lot less than if you're processing Saudi crude. So I don't exactly see what the logic is other than just Alberta feels that it has a valuable resource. It needs to get it to market, but it's just not sure that the U.S. market is going to be as stable as it has been. So they want options, and I'm perfectly fine with having options. I just don't see that this is necessarily the best option, and at the expense, not just financially, but also politically, that it's going to cost to get it there. I don't really see what the benefit is. So I have a feeling that the if really is the operative word here, and we could be talking about this for a decade at least.
We also explored what it would mean if the private sector isn't willing to invest and whether that signals concerns about the project's economic viability.
If we build this pipeline at a cost of billions of dollars, we need to know that it's going to be more or less full, right? You don't want to build a pipeline that's only going to be 50% capacity. I'm always a big believer that if private investors don't step up and say, under the right conditions, we would be interested, you just have to name what those conditions are. But if private investors stay quiet, then it's a terrible idea. Private investment is motivated by profit, and where some people might view that as icky or not liking the idea, I think it's what makes the world go round, unfortunately. The profit motive is what incentivizes firms to invest, to innovate, to increase productivity. There's a return for them. So if they don't jump at this opportunity and line up and say, I want to take on this project, then what they're saying is, I don't see a path to profitability here. And it's not that they have to make a profit every year. Pipeline's going to last you 30, 50, 100 years. And if they're saying that, hey, even in that time frame, I don't see the economics here, then again, the government has used a lot of its political capital to get a project that may or may not be viable. And so I think it really is telling that we haven't seen private industry even screaming for this pipeline the way that the Alberta government has. So regardless of the deal that was made, we really haven't seen that issue coming out of the public sector or the private sector, sorry, other than just saying that, look, we got a lot of valuable resources here. We need to get it to market. But beyond that, they've been rather quiet, and nobody has stepped forward saying, look, if you can't do it, we will happily do it. And again, go back and take a look at Canada's recent pipeline history. It's littered with private investment that without huge government support doesn't happen.
And finally, with the Liberals framing this agreement as evidence of a renewed focus on nation building, we discussed what other priorities should be front and center to help strengthen Canada's economy.
Well, I think in general, it's important to remember that Canada is a country that's about 7,000 kilometers from east to west, and we never really talk about the north to south route. And the Arctic, of course, is going to be increasingly important with global warming, changing shipping lanes, and how it's going to become a lot more viable to ship from, say, China to the east coast of North America by going through the Arctic rather than going through the Panama Canal. If you're going to build nation-building projects, then what you need is a way to try and link up that vast country that all essentially live along the Trans-Canada Highway. So it's not just pipelines, right? It's the roads, the bridges, the infrastructure. We've already seen defense being an issue, and Where some Canadians might question the value of defense, it's hugely important. If we have this enormous landmass, at what point does somebody show up and just say, this part of the country now belongs to me? Is Canada going to be able to defend it? Are the Americans going to come to our rescue and save us from whoever's invading? Is it going to be the Americans themselves that come and invade the territory, right? So all of these projects then are designed to create a stronger Canada. And when they're throwing out that phrase, it's not just some sort of political platitude. It really is fundamentally that Canada of 40 million people spread across this enormous landmass needs to look in all directions at who's coming for us and what is it that we can do to make sure that we are mobile, not just from a labor standpoint, but from a capital standpoint, and that we can easily move to wherever our strengths are. So, I think he's got the right idea. I think his problem is going to be that he's going to need trillions of dollars to do it.